Sixx Sense with Nikki Sixx. The Sixx Sense.
Nikki Sixx, Sixx Sense. I'm with Jen, Tom Morello, Brad Wilk, hanging out in the studio with us. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
How are you?
It's nice to be here.
Good to see you guys. We had your bandmates in recently hanging out with us. That was a good time.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry to hear
Very
that.
well behaved.
They were well behaved.
Very too
That's
well
awesome.
behaved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
They came in with
My
a
moment
cloud,
was like
but-
when
Yeah,
Chuck
they
D
come-
was
yeah,
like,
that's
yeah,
funny.
man, like we listened to like some Looks That Kill, like, you know, out on the road. And I was like, that made me, it was like a happy moment in my
Yeah,
life.
sure.
I was like, all right, cool.
Well, those guys are more
right.
metal than you might expect. Like,
Yeah, I got that.
The
Especially
original
B.
B. I mean, B Real is he's a
metalhead.
He's a metal encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Like he kind of
Ironic.
DJs when we're driving to and from the gig, and he goes pretty deep catalog on all this stuff. And Chuck, the huge Public Enemy stage shows of the '80s were based on the Iron Maiden shows. He saw Maiden, like the big production. He was like, no hip hop group is doing anything like that. We're going to be the ones to
And
do
that's
that.
why it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it stood apart from the
Yeah,
other stuff.
for sure.
You've been in Italy for what seems like a month.
I have.
How long was it?
I was there for a very long. We toured. We toured a long time. The band Prophets of Rage played our first show May 31st, 2016, and then worked pretty much for a year plus.
Yeah.
And then took some time off with the kids in Italy.
Yeah.
And visited the Morello homeland. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys came out and
Not a bad
just,
place.
Started right on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Just-
whiskey.
just kept going,
Yep,
you know.
Yep.
So, Living on the 110, that's out right now.
That's correct.
That one I relate to that song because, I do a lot of street photography and
Yeah.
I'm in that neck of the woods a lot. And
Take some
I've
great
been
pictures,
seeing
by
it.
the way. I say you take some great pictures,
Thank
by
you,
the
man.
way.
Thank you. I'm just
checking
trying
them
to
out on
kind
your
of
Instagram.
tell people's story and find a little bit of something positive in it. And I noticed like for years going down to Skid Row, I'm just like noticing it is in one way becoming less populated because they're moving. The tints are moving. The cities are moving and, over to, the 110 and stuff.
Yeah,
So it really connected with me. The lyrics are positive. The music's powerful, man. And, you guys have always been proactive in your views and in, other bands and stuff. Was there like a conversation that happened as a band? You guys sit down and say, these are some things we want to talk about, or is it organic?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that's really cool about Chuck and B is they were very open thematically to lyrics. And so we would have, full 6-person discussions or 2-person discussions about different stuff. But, like the issue of homelessness and the issue of poverty and economic inequality is one that has, plagued our country for a long time. To be such a rich country and have so many people that don't have a roof over their heads or enough to eat is really criminal. And I've lived in Los Angeles now for 31 years. And here the stark contrast between rich and poor is greater than, almost anywhere else. We literally have, Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces on the 110 freeway driving on top of people who are living underneath them who don't have 2 pennies to rub together.
Yeah.
So a lot of our songs have a social or political content, but the first job we have to do is make a rocking jam. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what you're talking about.
Yeah. I feel that in everything there's positivity, and I notice anytime anybody wants to make a statement or something they believe in, whatever it is, whether it's folk songs or pop songs, people always go for the negative. I saw that with you guys. People like going for the negative. I'm like, where do you see a negative in this? It's a time. It's always been a time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But what's press like for you guys? Is this like a thing you have to like constantly educate the press?
Well, I mean, the one thing for 25 years, Brad and I, have been in politically minded bands. And now if you're an interviewer and you interview, say, 60 people a year or 200 people a year, you probably only interview one political rock band a year.
Yeah.
So we get the same 10 questions in every interview.
Yeah. What would you like to be asked?
Wow. Well, questions 5 through 10, I'm probably looking at Tom going, fuck, what happened yesterday? I slept
I'm not up on those Guatemalan labor unions. Morello, what do you got?
Yeah, there has to be some pressure there.
Yeah.
Just to keep
That's
up
the
on
gig.
top
That's
of
the
stuff.
gig. I mean, that's the gig,
Yeah.
though. I mean, and that's kind of what we signed up for.
Yeah,
like
sure.
We our twin passions, have musicians are to play music that is impactful and powerful, and to have a voice in the world. Like the bands that I grew up on a lot of metal, but the bands that really sort of affected my point of view were the Clash and Public Enemy, who had great music and had something to say that I could relate to, and
Yeah.
so we try to have one foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
How do you stay up to date?
Like I said, I wake up and I go, Tom, what the fuck happened yesterday?
How do you do it?
Morello's
Honestly,
to Twitter.
Well, that's a really good question because there's so
Yes.
much media.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And opposing views.
That's
exactly.
correct.
So
That's correct.
what,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
truth? It's
Yeah.
like
really,
I even forgot that there's a healthcare bill under
Right.
there.
Well, I mean, we're
That's-
living in particularly,
what I mean?
times where there's a lot of information coming every day, and in this day and age where you can basically pick a news channel to your specific,
Right.
your
Yeah.
color of the rainbow on the political spectrum. So people are just kind of reinforcing their own prejudices in that way. I mean, what I try to do is
I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, so I try to. I mean, I look at New York Times front page. I look at Fox News. I look at CNN. I look at The Intercept. I look at The Guardian. Things that have like a wide variety of points of view, and I make up my own damn mind.
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you feel when people say, musicians should like just stick to doing what they do? Because I get that a lot. Because Motley Crue, not a political band. And 6 a.m. not a political band, and I've never been too outspoken about it. And it wasn't something that really grabbed me.
Yeah.
Until the last few years. I guess I've grown up a little bit, and I get a lot of people online
People get
saying,
furious. Yeah,
they get so mad.
Yeah.
To keep writing songs about titties, Nicky.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's
well, they're great
titties
too.
are political.
Go ahead.
There's every song you could look at as political. Either you're throwing the blanket over everyone's eyes or you're exposing it.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to be in bands that I think that like to expose these things. First and foremost, I'm a musician. The biggest part I can do is play a show, have these ideals and music coming at an audience. If one person in that audience is inspired in any way, not necessarily political, maybe it's to pick up an instrument and have a voice.
Yeah.
In any way, if you're that spark plug for another human being, that's a huge moment as a musician.
And the only time people complain about mixing politics with music is when they disagree with your politics.
Correct.
That's right. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you write a song that agrees with their politics, they're like, oh hell yeah. It's that simple. It's
That's never going to happen. It's not going to be just
and,
one way.
And the good news, I mean, I'd say with all of our band, from Rage to Prophets of Rage, that one of the things that we've never shied away from, there's no political litmus test to be a fan. You can, whatever your views are, you can be a fan. We make music to rock you senseless, but a lot of people who come to that music with a diverse points of view are exposed to a point of view that doesn't exist in the other music they listen to. And then you have to think about it, and you can say, I hate those guys because they think this, or it might open your mind to ideas that you're not getting from the other bands you're listening to.
How old were you guys when you met?
24. I was 24.
I'm like about 15 years older than Brad, so
You're
I was about
28.
Were you 24?
23 or 24.
Something like that. When you were a youngster, Brad auditioned for my pre-Rage Against the Machine band called Lockup, and that's when we first
Drum
met.
set fell apart.
And the audition
Almost
wasn't.
killed the
He
bass
was
player.
great. The audition wasn't great.
Yeah.
We finished the first song like at the audition. Brad was playing well, and he hit the cymbal on like the last note of the song, and his little dinky cymbal stand just went.
Like kind of a Spinal Tap moment.
And I thought this guy might not be road ready.
A little bit.
Might not be road ready.
bit.
Either that or he hits way
He's
too
great,
hard.
but he-
Needs a bigger
His gear's
kit.
kind of dinky.
Yeah,
But
and he took a long time to set that goddamn kit up,
he did
too.
take a while. It looked like he was unfamiliar with
Probably
it.
all pieced
What is this?
together.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, come on, my cymbals had cracks in them.
But
and-
that's all funny and all. But the singer in that band didn't really sort of love the Brad vibe. But I thought he and I played great together, and I kept his number. And later, when that band disintegrated, like I got the day that the Rage Against the Machine began to percolate, that other band Lockup broke up. I was sitting on my couch in West Hollywood. The singer called up said our band's broken up. I hung up and I called up Brad Wilk. Said, "You want to jam?"
Yeah.
And then here we are on the Sixx Sense radio show.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that guitar player is shit.
Yeah.
I think I even called you and went, hey, if you ever want to
you
just
did.
jam,
You did.
let's fucking get together.
You
and
did.
A lot
play.
of stuff comes from jamming.
Yeah,
with you guys, huh?
yeah.
I think that's so
Yeah.
cool. I can hear it, but I can't hear it at the same time. It's very organized, you know, but it's also, you can feel that it came from somewhere. Like, what would a session start, like a songwriting session for you guys? Is there any particular
Very different
way?
at very points and different points of our career. I would say at the
Absolutely.
beginning, like before the 4 members of Rage Against the Machine got in a room, Brad and I we would rent. I forget what was the name of that place right by Murder
Hollywood,
Burger.
Hollywood rehearsals.
We
or
would
whatever.
we didn't have the money to rent a space there to rehearse, so we would rent a space from people who had a space there.
Wow, okay.
We'd be set up in front of like some some guy with like six kick drums.
Some super progressive band.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like squanched into the little like me and Brad like playing our
From, like,
playing
midnight
bomb
to
track.
4
I
a.m.
remember like Know Your Enemy, like just playing these songs and going, oh shit, there's something.
Yeah.
Something there.
We had,
There's
we
a
had
connection there.
Back that we had a bunch of there were about 5 or 6 of the songs that eventually morphed into the first Rage record we were playing in that.
Was
in
the
that room.
simplicity of that, like that guitar that you do? It's complicated, but it's simple. It's easy to understand.
Yes, yeah.
And was that like there before you guys got together for you, like as a player? Were you starting to experiment with that?
I wasn't able to. If Rage Against the Machine was the first band where I found myself able to write music that I loved. You know, and I think that it came out in the chemistry. Like I had this kind of riff tape when Brad and I
The
first
riff
met
tape,
that
the
had
famous riff
some of the
tape.
riffs that. And the thing is, like I played those riffs with a bunch of different people, different drummers too. I played with like Stephen Perkins, people who are great drummers, but it didn't sound like that, until we played together and until Timmy, kind of. And that's entirely to do with band chemistry, you know. And I know, like with Motley Crue, I'd feel that too. Like you can take.
No, it was.
Yeah, you can take like the 4 best musicians in the world, and they might make a shitty band. It's likely they will make a shitty band.
Yeah.
But you have to find sort of the right puzzle pieces and chemistry that you can create something that's unique.
And you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, even with Motley Crue, you could not make that up. Like with these people, like Vince's voice it's like weird.
Yeah,
I mean, it's great,
yes,
but it's weird. It's
yeah.
not like a professional singer, so to speak.
Right.
And that's, what made it in all bands, I think, that are really special have that with each musician. There's something unique. And
something happens on that frequency chart. Like with Motley Crue, there's something totally unique that happens when the 4 of you
It
guys
has to be those 4 guys. Yeah.
play.
Yeah. Like with Motley, I had this house. I was living with this girl, basically just so I could have a place to set up my bass amp. And I had Tommy come over, and we had this other guitar player. And he was a sweet enough kid. He was really meek, but I was happy to have a guitar player. And then Mick Mars came in. We got him in the Recycler magazine. He came in and he drank like half a bottle of schnapps, fired the kid. The kid cried. He wrote me a letter and told me he was going to chop me up and put me in little pieces. And
This is Mick.
Mick Mars.
Wow.
And then I said, this is my guy.
Yeah.
That shows you what's wrong with
That's
me.
incredible.
That's exactly what we've been looking
That's
for.
what we were looking for.
A
And then we had
murderer.
another singer. This guy sang kind of like Paul Rogers, a great voice.
Yeah.
He was flaky, and Vince showed up, and it was just messy, and it happened.
That's when.
That's so
But
that's-
we're all very lucky.
Yeah.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, we can practice our asses off and not meet the right guys,
right,
whatever.
And too, like I know that your band had there was drama in your band. There was drama in Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like that volatility. One thing I've never subscribed to is where people say it's the tension that makes the music great. No, it's the tension that makes everybody's life miserable and keeps you from making music and going on tour.
Yeah.
But there is something in the diverse personalities that when you can harness those people, you can make something that's very special.
Yeah.
But
I used to say that. I used to be like that about Motley Crue. I was like, it's the fact that it's so dysfunctional that's great. And now I'm like, that was not the fun time when it wasn't
You
working.
eventually have to either stand on a stage or stand in a studio or stand in a rehearsal room in order to do anything. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter.
The worst thing, emails, right? I mean, when you're fighting with a band on its emails, I mean, I don't know if you really were.
No,
you
we
do
never
the
really
email.
fought on
You didn't
emails.
have that,
Obviously,
right?
I did a little email. So
Yeah.
but not
And then you go to
yeah.
rehearsal,
the
and it's like,
Blackberry,
oh, that didn't exist.
Right.
Those conversations. But anyway.
Yeah, but let me tell you my one Motley. So I thought I've told Tommy this. I don't think I've told you this, but I was a big Motley Crue fan. You guys opened for Ozzy at the Boston Garden in 1984.
Yes, we did.
Shout out the Devil Tour,
Yeah.
right? And that was when
Jake
I was,
Healy on guitar.
What's that?
Jakey Lee on guitar.
Yeah, Jakey Lee was wearing the gloves. I tried to do. It's impossible to play with those gloves with the fingers cut off. All like the young people listening are like, "What's he talking about?" Check the Bark of the Moon video, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I got outside. You had an excellent street team back then, so they were passing out flyers. I saw this band Motley Crue. I'm like, "Hey, it's interesting." So they passed out flyers, and I sat in my dorm room at Harvard University and called BCN and AAF requesting Looks That Kill about 2,000 times.
No way. I love that. Thank you for doing
for
that.
real, for real.
That's cool.
And then I spent a lot of American money seeing your shows through the years too. So
And I remember after knowing about you guys, and then I would hear you're coming to the show, and I love it when you find different musicians. Like nothing you've ever done sounds like Motley Crue.
Yeah.
And, I will go see these bands and people are like, what are you doing here, Nicky? And I'm like, because I love music.
Yeah.
I remember working in record stores. I worked at Music Plus in Glendale. And I loved it because I could just go to each bin, and that's back when you could open a record and play it in the store. Yeah. And I'd go to jazz section, and then I'd go to this new punk section. It was only about this wide.
Right.
And just play all this music all the time. And I always thought, man, the perfect world would be a radio station that is like that I could have. Now we have streaming, which is great. You could just take it all in.
Yeah.
Remember Moby Disc and Licorice Pizza
and album covers.
An album cover. Now there's on my phone. There's an album cover. I have to have 2 pairs of glasses to see what somebody's album cover looks like.
I gotta tell a funny Motley Crue story. So the first time I heard about you guys, I was in 9th grade. My friend Damien Cord would come to school. We were all into heavy metal and shit, and he would come. He's like, "Man, I got this guy Tommy, and he's living at our house, and he's in this band, and he's got all these devil books and shit." And he's like, "Look at this," and he's like, "Yeah." And I
always wrestled with the
name of the
devil
band
issue,
is Motley Crue or something.
Yeah.
That time I hadn't heard you guys yet.
Yeah.
And then of course Livewire. Finally, this was right just before that. And I remember hearing Livewire on the radio going, "Oh shit, this is fucking
That's the guy
Motley
with the
Crue."
devil books.
Yeah.
That guy with the devil books.
And then
those must have been my books.
Yeah.
I don't see Tom.
We only had one set.
I'm not feeling devil books on that.
We only had one set of devil books, and we'd share them.
One
Take this to your friend's house to scare them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
So
the devil books are overdue.
I have a story that kind of makes it all full circle, even though I don't play a lick of anything. I was in 9th grade when I first heard you guys, and I lived in a tiny town in the middle of Oklahoma, and there was nobody to really speak for me or my friends or, people that I was around more often than not. And when Rage came around, and it was just that there was the grungy angst and all that stuff, but there wasn't you yet. And so when you came, it was a way for me. And I mean, we lived in a town full of oil money, so everybody around me was wealthy. I wasn't. And my friends weren't that wealthy either. And it was just that voice. And I'll never forget, I got to go see you guys probably 98, 7, 8, something like that. And I remember that was
where was it?
In Oklahoma City.
In Oklahoma. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I went in the pit. That was my first pit.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
You lived to tell
was
the
that
tale.
for you?
It was nuts, but it was me and my friends letting it out, and my parents hated it, and my, everybody
you're on the
around
right track.
Right, if you're
the church on every corner, and I'm like,
you got a career ahead of you when the parents say.
So when did Rage's first? When did you first get your record deal? This was right after Nirvana was hitting, and so record companies, I think, for the very first time looking at an alternative.
They were like we don't know what's happening, but we're not going to try to make them make a single. Whatever they're doing seems to be so. We got our record. First record came out in '92. Band formed in August 30th of 91 was the first time four of us were in a room together.
And to your credit, before we got a record deal, we actually rehearsed for 3 months straight, didn't play a show.
No.
and went and recorded our record.
So you have was there a demo?
Yeah, there was a demo.
Okay, so this is going to tie into...
We made that record, yeah.
Now I don't feel like I'm totally crazy.
Yeah.
So I was living... It was after the Dr. Feelgood album, so that came out in 89.
Yeah.
So
saw that show.
So I was at my house. It was we were home from the tour. It was a long tour, so it had to be 90-something. A friend of mine, like, I have all of my friends that we just talk about music. We just like geek out like we're 13. Yeah. Now it's like texting, here's Deep Purple, like, this album cover, this. Yeah. And he comes to my house with a cassette. And he goes, I saw this band, I think he said at Perkins Palace. Did you guys play Perkins Palace? So that part's not right. But he had this cassette and he put it in. He goes, this band Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. And I remember I just got these massive speakers. I go, let's check it out. And I was like, awesome. Holy fuck. It was so exciting because for me, being in bands was, we were always trying to get ahead of what was happening because we wanted to just feel like we were our own island, And a lot of times with Motley, I felt like a lot of bands were kind of chasing it, but didn't really get us. They would copy the image and not really know what to. So that was frustrating for us. But so when I heard that cassette, I was like, this is this perfect timing, and I remembered that. So. It must have been a demo I had.
Yeah, or he had. I mean, we had because I had such a horrible relationship with the major label that I was on prior to Rage Against the Machine, and I never thought that this band, none of us ever thought that this band would even be able to book a club show because of what it was. Like there was no venue for a multi-ethnic.
I'd never heard it.
Punk, rap, rock, neo-Marxist band. Like no one's booking that gig, right? Yeah. Let alone getting a record deal or doing a tour or anything like that. So we just made that music. It was completely honest and completely authentic. All we wanted to do was make that cassette. We were going to make our own record because we don't care about anybody, and then we're going to sell it for $5 at our shows. And that was the career we. Not at our shows because we weren't going to have shows. We're just going to sell it for $5 to people we met on the street.
Who's going to put out a single with 16 fuck yous in it?
That was our career aspiration. Was to do that.
Isn't that great when we hear bands' first records and you get it that it was real?
Yeah.
Sometimes by the fifth record, you're like, okay, I kind of get they're trying to capture what the first record was. Right. Everyone's guilty of that. But it's that first record, man. I love first records.
There's no expectation. Like you're just making the music for yourself.
Mostly people are really young and don't have any idea. It might be a producer, trying to lead them. But that's it's a great time. So that cassette, man.
That cassette was pretty cool. Did you get one? Did you have one with a match in it? Because it had
my friend took the match. I'm sure.
My friend took the match. So the cover of the cassette was like it was. We did it at Kinko's or whatever that place was right across from Guitar Center on Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So it was like the Wall Street Journal like finance pages overlapping each other with a real match taped to it, and so we were taping those matches. But we were in a sweatshop out the back of my van with me and Johnny Sabella, who was our friend.
You're like, whose idea was the match?
I'm like, exactly. We're painting ourselves in a corner with his match. Just go to Kinko's.
We hope this band doesn't take off because we're going to be doing a lot of matches.
It's a lot of work, man, putting these matches on.
What do you feel like was the top of the mountain for Rage?
I
Finsbury Park, maybe?
Yeah. In 2010, there was a... that show, The X Factor, like it was a big deal in the UK, and for 5 years in a row, the winner of the X Factor, apparently like the Christmas #1 single in Britain's a big deal. Like people bet on it like they bet on the Kentucky Derby, and everyone sits down on Christmas morning, no kidding, and listens to the top 10 countdown while they're eating their turkey, whatever, and it's a big deal around the country. So anyway, for 5 years running, the winner of the Christmas #1 single had been the winner of X Factor. The show ends the week before Christmas. They crown a winner. They sing it on the show. The whole country buys it. It's horrible, and everyone suffers, right? So this suburban couple outside of London just started a Facebook page to make Rage Against the Machine's 17-year-old song, Killing in the Name, the #1 single. They had an idea. They put it on Facebook. And pretty soon it had 50,000 likes. Then it had 500,000. There was this like massive national movement to unseat Simon Cowell's X Factor song. We didn't even know about it. We had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Right.
About a week ahead of when people were going to start buying things, somebody informed us. We got involved a little bit. We did like some radio show, and we had the #1 pop single for Christmas in the UK on, where people were sitting down, and when it came time to #1, they had to listen, while they're carving their turkey, they listen, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, motherfucker.
17
Pass
years
me the
later.
potatoes.
Yeah.
And so we promised during that ramp up to it that if we did have the #1 single, we would play a free show for the entire country. So at Finsbury Park in London, we played a show that next summer, and it was like 90,000 people, and it was the happiest day in the history of the band, and it was that was the peak of the band.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Everything was right.
Everything was right, man.
like-
It was beautiful.
And I love that it all started with an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't some wreck. It wasn't like a marketing plan. It was just
There wasn't
couple-
a budget.
There was no budget. There was no budget. And that's, there's a lesson to that. Like, sort of when you form Motley Crue, when we form Rage Against the Machine, when these people had it's like, if you do something that is from the heart and that is really like shows a conviction that's not trying to make money, it's very authentic, that example inspires people in a big way. And that's when things are real and things are important. So
Yeah.
there you go.
So, what song from Prophets do you feel makes a big difference? I mean, if someone was to sit down and listen to this record for the first time, what song is it?
You just listen to the record, so
You tell me.
He forgot.
I'd say that. This is a record that this record has a lot in common when we wrote the first Rage Against the Machine record. It's the most collaborative record that we've worked on, I think, in our careers. It was really like sort of six people, all with open minds and open hearts to each other's music, and sort of finding our feet as the chemistry of this band, not as any of our previous bands, and not as like sort of a Frankenstein together band of PE, Cypress, and Rage Against the Machine. I'd say the song Radicalize or the song Unfuck the World really kind of feel like a lot of those Rage songs feel like they were written for 2017. Well, these songs were written for 2017, and they have like kind of the visceral like feeling of like we've been a band for about a year, and we played in front of 2.5 million people with some new songs, some old songs, and it really feels like this record at this time is the soundtrack for the Resistance.
Unfuck the World is one of the greatest videos I think I've ever seen.
That's a great video.
Michael
right?
Moore.
It's more directly.
Such a great video.
Genius.
I mean, we watched it. I can't even tell you how many times just in this room alone. The first time we saw it.
And what I
was-
loved is when we were
excellent.
watching, I go, what does that mean? What does that mean? I love questions. I'm a question guy. Like, give me a reason to ask a question, because I'll go deeper and deeper and deeper in the
That's
with
cool.
the medical symbols going.
Right.
Wait, what are they talking about here? And it's like, so I love that. That's that thing really inspired us to
fine rock
talk.
video
It started a conversation.
Yep.
How do we make a change? You know what? A better question. Who do we depend on right now besides each other? If we were to look.
That's it.
I would say nobody besides each
Okay.
other. I think that's any time that where there's been like progressive, positive, or radical change in the United States, it's come from below, not from above. You can't sit around waiting for elected officials who are owned by their corporate sponsors to do something, or clown man babies to do something on your behalf. This is going to have to be us. And how you do it is in your place, in your time, you stand up for what you believe in. And it's whether you're in a band, whether you're a radio show host, whether you're a carpenter, whether you're a student, that all of us have the ability to be agents of history. History isn't something that is done to us. History is something that we make, or we sit it out on the sidelines and let somebody else make it. I've never been content to leave my future and my country's future and my world's future in somebody else's hands, because the people who own and run the world don't deserve to. They're often a bunch of sons of bitches who are doing it for short-term monetary gain and fuck the rest of us. And I'm not okay with that. So
explain something to me. So like I don't understand politics that much. I think I'm pretty common to a lot of people I know. A lot of my friends, we know a little bit.
Yeah.
We know what we don't like. I know what I don't like. I talk about what I don't like more than I ever have before. I have an allergic reaction to 45. It's for a lot of reasons. How would you explain how we can make a difference to someone like me who's not political?
Sure. I would say all you have to do is look at the history of how change has been made in the past. You can take any example. For example, there was a time when women did not have the right to vote in this country. That's a bad thing. Now they do. What happened? It wasn't like there was divine intervention. It wasn't like the Supreme Court finally changed its mind. It's women, just like men and women, like your listeners, who stood up and they protested. They wrote letters. They marched in the streets. They demanded. They boycotted. They did everything that was in their power. They used their creativity, their intellect, their strength to stand up against something that was wrong. That's how the Berlin Wall fell. That's how apartheid was ended in South Africa. That's how bus stations were desegregated in the South. It's not there's no magic to it. And it's not special people who are different from you. It's people exactly like you.
So sometimes people are waiting.
That's right.
Like, just tell me where to go to make a difference.
Exactly. Well, I mean, the good news is in this day and age, you're 2 clicks away from anything that you want. There are people, grassroots organizations in every city in this country are working on any issue that you're interested in. If you think that, you're afraid that your grandchildren won't have a world to inhabit because of global warming, and you live in Peoria, Illinois, 1, 2, and you're going to find some organization nearby that is working day and night hard to help save the planet.
What's how do you guys see when you see the protesting turning to violence? How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean,
is there an answer to that? I watched a thing in Charlottesville, and I can't wrap my head around it. It makes me feel shallow when I say I can't wrap my head around it. I'm like trying to understand
hard to wrap.
Why can someone drive a car into people, innocent people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a long, deep thread of part of the DNA of this country is racial violence. Like, that's as American as baseball and apple pie. It's one of the the original sins of this country was slavery, and the echoes of that are coming through to this day as we see. I think that people in this day and age, in the last year or so, are emboldened. Racists are emboldened by the fact that there are racists in the cabinet and people who speak very in a non-condemning way about heinous points of view.
I felt like we were making progress. Was I just blind?
I think there's a general trend towards progress, but you can never not be vigilant because there's a thin line between civilization and horrific chaos. There are people who want to exterminate Jewish people, like who live in the United States and who were marching the other day in Charlottesville. Like, it's up to us to stand against. There has to be zero tolerance for that kind of violent racial hatred. And it's not a matter of let's all unite. I don't want to unite with Nazis. Okay, I want to unite against Nazis. That's what I think we need to do.
What do you tell your kids?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
We had this.
I think when we talk about violence, like before I had kids, like the idea of revolution to me is like, how many times have you had a revolution that was nonviolent? I think once in India maybe, but for the most part, revolution comes violence. Best case scenario would be a non-violent revolution, and especially now since I have kids, it's really hard for me as well to wrap my head around violent revolutions. So, like I said, best case scenario would be to have some sort of non-violent revolution. It just doesn't seem too plausible to me in reality. That's the unfortunate thing.
So
I look at my 10-year-old and he says, "What can I do? I don't want." He thinks that if he yells loud enough, that the man in the office will get out of the office, it doesn't. It doesn't compute quite yet that's not how that works. But I mean, it's weird to have kids, especially kids that are aware.
But maybe he's onto something, what Tom's saying.
Yeah.
It is standing up.
Yeah, it is standing up. And one thing I can tell you what your 10-year-old can do is in his life, he can never let anyone get away with that kind of racism.
Right.
Whenever you see it, you call it out. You call it for what it is, and you make sure that. And then here's the thing: is like when you do that, people see your example, and they see your courage in standing up against injustice, and that inspires them to stand up against injustice too. That's how it works. If you're just sort of quiet and you go like, I'll tell you one of the biggest regrets of my life. Like, I'm always about standing up against the man and all this. But when I first moved to LA, I was at a KFC by the La Brea Tar Pits. And I remember standing in line, and the woman, there was a Hispanic woman working behind the counter, and this mean lady because she asked to take her order in Spanish, and the lady was just on her and just telling, "This is America, you should be speaking it." And I didn't speak up, and I regret that for the rest of my life, because there were other people in that restaurant. If they had seen me take the side of the person who was being bullied, it would have been like, "Oh, like I can stand up too. We don't have to just sit here and take that racist bullshit. We can do something about it." And so that's like one of my biggest regrets. And I always I tell my kids are little, they're like 6 and 7, but they're aware that if you see someone bullying or acting mean to someone
Yeah.
because of how they talk or because of what they look like, that's your responsibility to let people know that's not okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Have you thought about kids' books?
Excellent.
You know what? I haven't, but
Excellent.
now that you say it, that might not
Hello?
that might not be a worse second career.
Yeah.
hey, it's a way in, to get people to understand stuff. So, like, what do you guys do, when you're not being a band? You guys hang out together. Do you all? I mean, I know what it's like to be in a band and have a wife and kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes we live in different parts of the city or even different countries.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
Taking my kids to club soccer every damn day.
Isn't that
Nikki.
great?
Every day.
See,
It's
I look
incredible.
forward to that, and a lot of people don't know we look forward to that.
yeah.
It's
That's like what I'm
incredible.
here
Dude, I
for.
coach. I'm a little league coach and a soccer coach.
Yes.
Like I'm out there. I was. Thank goodness we're like FaceTime now. We were in Berlin. I was coaching my kids' all-star game from Berlin. I'm like, no, you got to. I'm telling the other coach, you got to swap out first the pitcher and the first baseman. Trust me, like you got the wrong thing. And then we just like, thanks, coach.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
And your kids are still just totally receptive and accepting and excited for.
My kids don't do a damn thing I say for the most part, but they've
just
got
wait
that
till they
fuck
turn
you, I won't do
13.
what you tell me ingrained in them. That's in their DNA.
Yeah, they've been listening to your songs.
Yeah, they have. No scooters in the living room. All right.
My
On the
I got
couch?
that.
All right.
my 26-year-old Gunner is like very independent, very liberal, and he showed up. I guess to shock the old man, he had some grandma earrings on. And remember that? He did his eyebrows orange, and he did. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a dress. I don't know what it was. And he shows up and he doesn't say anything, right? So I'm like, okay, he's just expressing himself. I probably did just
This
the
is
same
at 26.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, a little bit younger.
Yeah, but it's in his
younger.
20s. He's not.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, he's
14
20.
or
Yeah.
anything.
So I remember he left, and I was like, so what's that all about? And he just goes, oh, what's it like looking at yourself? Just trying to shake the tree a little bit, and
It's my turn to embarrass you.
but we learn so much from our kids, and it's fantastic being a parent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your give me something new that you're listening to? You got anything new?
It's not new, but man, for the last 3 days, I went back to TV on the Radio, Return to
gosh.
Cookie Mountain, which, fuck, that record is so good. It's like pet sounds of that era.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to it in a long time. I guess that's not new. For me, it was just, that's what I've been listening to the last 3 days. Can't get it out of my car.
Yeah.
I like the new Royal Blood record, and I like there's a band we took on tour in Europe called Zeal and Ardor, which are a
I've heard
Swiss
them.
band. It's really great. I got their hat on right now. It's like part chain gang blues,
Okay.
part like Norwegian death metal,
Okay.
and they are genuinely Satanists.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
it's real. It's
They have the devil books.
They have our devil
I
books.
couldn't wait to go in the dressing room and go like, so the whole Satan thing, is that like kind of like, no, we're down. I'm like, well, all right.
Yeah.
It's really scary music. I have great
Yeah.
videos too. It's a band with a, I'm not sort of endorsing their satanic beliefs, but they're very nice people. Some of the nicest Satanists I've ever met.
Every Satanist I meet's a nice guy.
Zeal
I mean, look
and
at Tommy.
I gotta tell you, it was so hard. Like here's the thing. I'm a big fan of. No one loves metal more than I love it, but I never could wrap my head around like the devil. I was always embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
Like can't I just enjoy AC/DC without the devil? Can't I enjoy my Motley Crue without the devil?
Yeah.
Why do we
Yeah.
have to bring the devil into it?
I liked it. Like
like
it
the
was
devil,
kind
man.
of.
I just wanted to rock and
made it
roll.
more edgy.
It's so
sometimes. I
risque.
liked
Well,
it.
That's
was
why
just
we had
embarrassing.
shout
like
at
what
the
about?
devil.
Wait.
I
You
know.
saw this.
We were
You saw
shouting at
Zap.
the
I
devil.
know, but you
Okay.
fiddled with the imagery.
You saw Mob Rules tour.
Fiddled
Yeah,
with
yeah.
it.
How did you feel when those backwards crosses?
The Mob Rules. There was a scary part of
Was
the
it
Mob
Mob-
Rules tour where during the song "Heaven and Hell," and it's like he's talking. Do you remember? You go to that tour. Like there's a little spotlight coming down on Ryan James Dio where like he's like has an argument between like the angel on one shoulder and the.
Oh, is this the
red fire.
hologram?
No,
Oh, no.
no,
This is
before,
real.
not like
Okay.
before all.
Okay.
Anyway, but I remember like as a kid going like, can't I just like great riffs and not be down with the fucking devil?
What's
man?
up with that backwards cross? What does
I got
that mean?
Catholic upbringing, and I got to go home with this T-shirt.
It's like, you got to explain that to your mom.
fucking devil on it.
They're nice devil worshippers, Mom.
Yeah.
not
I remember
like the
we
others.
figured
I just
out
didn't think any
how
of
to
them were
do
I just thought they
the
were just trying to-
cellophane on the flat black and put like a glossy pentagram.
I remember that. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
we put the cellophane on it.
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself. I was like, you can't see it. So I my big stupid brain as a kid was like, yeah, man, people are going to pull off the cellophane and go like, whoa, you know. What the whoa was us dressed in the inside. That was the whoa.
That's right.
I found some of those boots in storage the other day. My wife was like, what are those? I go, I don't want to give them to Tom.
I got to tell you, your man though, Vince, has some of the most hysterical stage patter during that era.
Oh,
I remember theater. I remember just go again. I was like,
I don't know where it came
my
from.
gosh, dude, I'm trying to love your band.
Yes.
So, how many you dudes out there like to come in the first 10 seconds? I'm like, what are you trying? Why are we rallying around that? Why are we rallying around premature ejaculation? Is that really the rallying cry of our generation, Vince?
That would be blamed on me for writing 10 seconds
That's
long,
I know, but
which
he
was a
like,
true
no,
story.
He's like, I got to whip up some frenzy. I got to like get the people united around something.
That's funny.
I remember like when Vince would be like, hey man, can like you just like go out and like talk to the crowd for a second so I can go get some water or something. And I was like, I'm really not comfortable talking to the crowd. And so like it started out as like I'd talk really quiet like that. And then like by the end of the tour, I had like a big statement. Towards the end of the tour, they would order a pizza when I would start talking and see if it could get there before I was done. And
what were you going on about? What were you going on about?
I would during the day think of a word. And I would have it put on the stage, whatever the word would be.
Jeez.
And I would just, when I would walk out there, I'd look at the word and I would start this conversation. It would always kind of lead back to empowering people. Sure. But then it got to the point where my tech would say, you're like the little rain, you're like the little dark rain cloud in the band. You know, it's like I kind of had morphed.
Like, Cincinnati, show us your tits, but first,
Nikki's going to school you.
Today.
That's excellent.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about Legalize and Fire to Shot.
Sure. Legalize Me. So we're in the studio with Brendan O'Brien, great producer.
Yes.
Love that guy. And, we got our songs for the record. I think we had about 11 songs for the record. And one day, Brendan O'Brien, who's been sober for 35 years or something, he says, you guys really need a song about weed. And we're like, what? He's like, you got to be real in your band. The people expect that sort of thing.
That's
I
right.
thought he was joking. He's like, I'm dead serious. Write a song about weed. So we kind of got some riffs together. We wrote that song in the studio. B wrote his very cypressy, weedy verses, but then flip the chorus around to make it not legalize it or legalize weed, but to legalize me, and to sort of have a dual meaning between the legalization of marijuana and what humans are legal and what humans are not.
Oh, whoa.
And,
okay.
So
I never caught that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
there goes the brain.
Yeah. So it's legalized, and both from kind of the Syrian refugee crisis and south of the border, and what makes a human illegal, not just what makes a substance illegal, but when should a person be illegal. So anyway, that's that jam.
Okay, great. And Fire to Shot?
Fire to Shot was weed induced.
I think
I
everything
don't
might
smoke,
be.
but I am trapped in the fucking room with Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
I asked Tim Craig that.
There's a couple
I'm like,
more.
what happens? Like, what do you? Where do you
get
go? He goes,
contact
you
eyes.
don't.
You get complete contact.
Me and
eyes.
Brendan are just like sitting there with our heads in our hands going, help us.
Because I don't do anything either. And like some of those European festivals, I'll go to the edge of the stage. I'll get a contact.
You get off the crowd. Well,
off the crowd. So I don't know what you got the crowd and the band.
Yeah. We just got the crowd. We got Be Real, dude. Like,
he is.
I've been in Amsterdam
weed.
with a guy, and he's the mayor of Amsterdam. Like, he's walking down the street. Everybody's like, like kissing the ring.
That's funny. Anyways, Fire to Shot started with just bass and drums at the end of a rehearsal, and then we came in the next day. Tom heard it, and within like 10 seconds had just this craziness going over it that we were all just like, "Oh my god, this together sounds great." And I think that there was B had a vocal on it.
That went together in about half hour.
Really quick. Super quick.
This is
song.
the best.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for hanging out.
Oh,
thanks for having us.
Time. You want to come down here and Raise hell.
Sure.
Excellent.
Sure.
Invite us. We'll
Bring
come.
your Satan books down.
I got
Your
'em.
children's
I got 'em.
Satan books.
Oh,
We
geez.
could go
I'll
into. We
bet you
could do
there is
this
such a
together.
thing. I'll bet
I
you
could
there is.
design the book cover.
We'll use the little cellophane thing.
All right, thanks,
But
guys.
thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Nikki Sixx and Jen on the Sixx Sense.